I'm Greg DeRocher, and this is Chamber Web TV, focusing on election 2018 and the candidates from both Cambridge and Kitchener South Hespeler. Here in our studio today is the candidate for the Green Party from the riding of Cambridge, Michele Braniff. Michele, good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again.
Yes, it's true.
I think I might have asked you why politics the first time we did an interview, but you're still at it. But I think it's not that you want to be a politician. It's you're passionate about your cause.
Well, part of my work, I teach at a community college. I teach social justice and social polity and change, and I'm a big fan of social innovation. Politics has gotten left out of social innovation. You see it in nonprofit, you see it in business. It needs to happen in politics, and the Green Party is all about social innovation. The Green Party is about collaboration, starting the dialogue, getting people to talk about it, and making change happen.
Yeah, well, then we should pass a piece of legislation that's called the Honesty in Politics Bill. You make a promise, you have to deliver.
Well, I think honesty, people, it is a given. There are ethics, there's the standards. I think civility is something that currently most kids in school would get better grades than what they get at Queen's Park. Some of the behaviors, some of the behaviors,
for sure,
right?
For sure.
And I mean, even at the debate, which they left out a very articulate leader of the Green Party, but that wasn't a collaborative discussion. It wasn't the kind of discussion that people would like to have around their dinner table about political issues. And the discourse. It has to get respectful. It has to get professional. We have some serious social issues going on, and we can't be distracted by kind of circuses.
That's politics.
But no, there needs to be serious collaboration.
No,
we need to work on these complex issues. And the reality is there's a place for the ideology, the approaches of the different parties, but it needs to be collaborative. They need to work together.
The Ontario Chamber of Commerce and chambers across the province and businesses have all collaborated together, given information to the Ontario Chamber, and we've come up with our campaign platform called Vote Prosperity. And it's built around 4 pillars of importance that we see, and that is strengthening business competitiveness, fostering job creation, building healthy communities, and improving government accountability. So I'm going to go through a couple of questions on each of these and get your feedback, as well as the Green Party's platform on some of them. The electricity file is number 1. We've long talked about that. My sense would be the Green Party supports a Green Energy Act. I don't know whether that's true or not. I would think that you might support nuclear power as well, but I might be wrong.
No, not nuclear power. But for one thing, the plants...
It's emission-free.
Well, the plants that we have are actually...
at the end of their cycle.
Yeah, and I mean, there's one thing about bread after its best before date. I'm not so sure about a nuclear plant, after that. So when you're talking about...
You're getting funnier at these two.
Well, I'm dealing with the politics of the party in power and what they think makes sense. I'm not intending it to be a joke. It's what they want to do. But it's very, very expensive to retool the plants.
Yes.
In fact, it's way cheaper to get electricity power from Quebec and from Manitoba. 1/3 the cost, and you've got money.
Do they have enough
over.
surplus electricity to be able to replace our nuclear plants?
Well, the idea is that the short term we're using that electricity. Long term we're moving. We started into solar energy and wind panels when the prices were high. The prices are going down now. This is the time to leave it. I mean, in business that you don't buy high and sell low if you can help it.
Right. Exactly.
You try to.
But and that's an interesting discussion, and I've never had this discussion with anybody about it. But when it's not sunny out, you can't get the solar panels to output 100%. And if there's no wind, the windmills aren't going. So it's fine to say, and I agree with it, renewable energy using wind or using solar is great. It's fantastic. Except it's not reliable.
Well, what's happening is the storage and the batteries. That's an area where the technology needs to get better. I'm not an engineer.
But you think by the time all of that circulated out and the phasing out of even our nuclear power plants because they get too old and not refurbished, you're really betting that by that time the battery storage capabilities are going to be there so that we can.
And other technologies, like the Green Party is in support of. So the government, it shouldn't be running business.
Right.
Business needs to run business. The government of Ontario needs to create conditions for business to thrive. Some things like, consistency, so businesses can plan ahead, getting rid of all the red tape, right?
Yeah.
And barriers, and especially barriers to innovation. So what we want to do is encourage innovation. We're coming early on. If we come in and decommission the nuclear plants, we'll develop Canadian expertise in something that will be in great demand throughout the world.
Yeah.
It's one of the things we like to do in Ontario and as Canadians is share
Be
and
leaders
sell
and-
and be leaders. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's it's really, really interesting. I worry a little bit about, right now we're generating a little bit of surplus power. We sell it off to, other jurisdictions. I don't know why businesses in Ontario can't buy that.
Well, that's one of the things the Green Party is
We
in
should be
favor
able to
of.
buy that.
That local business
Yeah.
buy the surplus power. We're selling at a loss.
Yeah.
And then that's the other thing with the Green Party, and representing business, you'll get this as well, is what you measure is really important. What
Yeah.
are your indicators? And the Green Party is in favor of measuring assets, like, for example, keeping track of the minerals that we have in the soil, so that we're measuring it, the depletion, not selling it at a loss, and then measuring other important things, which I guess line up with some of your other columns, like the well-being and what's going on with people.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. At some point, as electric vehicles become more popular, we're going to need more electricity. Now, the good thing is, people have really embraced LED lighting and all that kind of stuff. So we've done a really good job as Ontarians at reducing the amount of energy we consume. But going into the future, we're going to need a lot of that because everything's going to be electrified. The province itself bought 2 ferries that are electric ferries. So, and not even people that are green necessarily would like to have an electric vehicle. They're just cool. They work very, very nice. So, phasing out that nuclear power generation and looking to renewable energy and battery storage, has the Green Party really thought out the fact that all of these other pressures that are going to be on the system, we're still going to be able to meet those targets?
So the Green Party isn't a party that tries to have all the answers or be the expert. The Green Party gets into dialogue and collaboration, also with other political parties, right? And so, what attracted me to the party is the areas where I had a lot of knowledge. The Green Party was looking at the evidence and doing evidence-informed policies. So the idea is that, there's this collaboration, the support of innovation. A lot of the innovation that's happened, like Ontario's in a good place, and a lot of good initiatives have taken place, but a lot of it has really been driven by business.
Yep.
And there's more that government can do to support business in terms of the innovation and creating conditions that encourage that to happen, right?
We're big fans, and you mentioned it, that the Green Party is a big fan too. We're big fans of evidence-based analysis. We called on the government to do an evidence-based analysis on Bill 148, the Better Jobs and Fair Workplaces Act, Better Jobs and Fair Workplaces Act. They didn't do that. They didn't want to do that, probably because they knew where the results would land. So the Ontario Chamber, a number with other funders and some corporate donations, we funded an independent analysis by CanCEA, the Center of Economic Analysis, who actually does work mostly for the provincial government, for this Liberal provincial government. They came out with a report that said 190,000 job losses. The very people you're going to be trying to help are the ones that are going to be displaced. Not because what was in it was wrong. Not because people shouldn't earn $15 an hour. It's putting it in 14 or 15 months, way too quick for business to plan. I'd say it's akin to, right now, the Premier saying to Doug Ford, you can't reduce 4% of the provincial budget. You can't do a savings of 4% or 6% or whatever he wants to save. You'll have to lay off people. Well, Bill 148 imposed 32% increase on the input costs to businesses over 14 months, and she called them bullies because they were going to have to lay off people. Well, that's what happens. What does the Green Party think about, and I know you're supportive of higher wages for those who are the working poor, but how would you address this?
Well, one of it is a guaranteed minimum income, right? Which is not like the minimum wage kind of passes
Guaranteed
things
basic income, I think.
Yeah,
right?
guaranteed basic income, and that has been recommended. When I teach a kind of a history class, McDonald Commission, way
Across
back.
party lines too.
Yeah, yeah.
Hugh Siegel, former conservative.
Yeah, so basically we've got all this piecemeal, and you have the guaranteed. It's that living income. It's good in difficult times because as we're transitioning to different economic conditions, people in transition. They're in challenging. So you want to so the government takes the responsibility for that, and then for especially small employees, right? Is there really wasn't any. There could have been more of a system set up for some of the payroll taxes,
Right.
For the small employees, and generally speaking, small business, it doesn't make sense to have things apply exactly the same to smaller businesses as large businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to understand scale.
Yeah.
Right? It's how everything happens, and you want to make sure that the workers are safe, and you want to make sure things are equitable and fair. But really, to be fair, you do things differently with small business than with large business.
To be fair to the employees, you want to make sure you're fair to the employer. Otherwise, the
That's
employees
right.
won't have a job.
Yeah.
And I think, for the most part, that's kind of what we were saying. I think this universal basic income program, or and it's been at the federal level, right across party lines. Like I say, there's every party. There is a core of people who believe in it. I think, from my perspective, it really addresses the working poor.
That's right.
Because you and I won't benefit from it. We're not going to get a guaranteed income because we have jobs that would be above that in pay. But those people who are now working, that single mom right now trying to raise a child on even $15 an hour, is impossible. But we're giving other people $15 an hour who are in 2 and 3 income families. They didn't need the $15. They didn't need the bump up. But this poor young individual who's trying to raise a family on $15 an hour needs it. And I think universal basic income would take care of that.
Would address that. I mean, the other impact of changing the minimum wage is there's all kinds of companies. I've talked to people. They don't pay anyone the minimum wage. But the difference between what they pay and the minimum wage has an impact on their pay scale once you raise the minimum wage, right? So you've got these timing things. This is, I think, government needs to recognize in social innovation, we like to distinguish between a simple problem, if it's simple, like a recipe, you bake a cake. Complicated, rocket ship, you get an expert. Complex, like raising a child, takes a village to raise a child, right? And sometimes you need, experts at the school and doctors and dentists, right? And what we have right now are complex problems. It's not simple. Right? Yeah. And you're talking about not consulting with the experts. They didn't even go with the expert thing. So there's a tendency along history, kind of the status quo of treating very complex problems as if they're simple.
Yeah.
And they're not. They're complex.
Yeah.
You need to have that. You need to have that dialogue, that listening, that back and forth. And the value is that if we listen to people who we disagree with, we will learn something.
Yeah.
And we will come up with a better
agree.
solution.
It's
right?
the reason why a surgeon does surgery with a scalpel, not an axe. Right? Because it's very complex and they have to be precise. And I think that's oftentimes, I've said that to people, that government generally does legislation as if they're a surgeon operating with an axe. They, whatever, let's just take the arm off.
The tools are here, you know, there's all, as you say, the evidence-informed decisions, there's all kinds of evidence here. There's places where there have already been pilot projects that are working
For
well.
sure.
Time to
Yeah.
scale them up,
Yeah,
right?
I think you're right. Fostering job creation. What do you think about the apprentice system here? Have you had to hire a plumber or electrician lately? It's like over $100 an hour.
Well, I've got a nephew who did very well
I
as
know.
a gas fitter, yeah.
And you know what? I think, and you're in the education system, I think, we need to better align businesses' needs with what the educators are. And I know post-secondary tries to do that, but they're largely driven by what happens to the student before it gets to them. And so, I think there needs to be a better alignment between what business needs are now and in the future, and what we're churning out the other end in our post-secondary education system. What do you
Yeah, the apprenticeship program, that's a place where there's a lot of barriers. It needs to be kind of one-stop. It needs to be an electronic application process. You've got regional innovation centers. Why not have those be hubs
Yep.
for apprenticeship? Have more of the dialogue going on, and education is obviously continuing, right?
Of course.
Sometimes people, when they finish first complete with their diploma or their degree or
Yep.
their certificate, they think they know everything.
Yep.
They get into the workforce and they realize quickly that there's more to learn, and we need to have that. Those pathways open for the communication, as you say, so that the apprenticeship programs are informed by needs, but as well that there's continuing education. So that the Green Party on education, we're kind of like, well, we're going to educate entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, and the apprenticeship, recognize that education is not something that just happens in a very small part of the lifespan, that in today's workforce, in today's complex,
it's forever.
it needs to keep on going,
Your focus, the Green Party's focus, seems to be on green jobs. Manufacturing is still about 20% or more of our economy in Ontario. Oftentimes, people, and I'm a little bit more knowledgeable, but there's a lot of people who say, "Well, I can't vote for the Green Party because they don't support manufacturing." What do you say?
Well, I think that the Green Party needs to do a better job of making sure people understand. The platform is jobs, people, planet, right? Triple bottom line. Manufacturing, last 10 years, there have been,
300,000 jobs.
300,000 jobs lost in manufacturing. Yes, the Green Party's in favor. I mean, the new economy is a green economy. It's a clean tech economy. But supporting innovation, creating conditions for success. So in the manufacturing sector, there's 3D printing, there's laser cutting, there's lots of areas where we want our Ontario manufacturers to be supported, to be, having the very cutting edge of innovation, and that's a role of government to get rid of the barriers, so that it can happen, and to work with business and listen to business.
Yeah, and I think there's lots of great examples. I shared with you earlier that one of our members, steel fabricator, welding, grinding, anything you can think of that is traditional core 1970s manufacturing, he does in his place, but he's carbon neutral. So it can be done. And
we also there's better ways of transitioning to the carbon neutral, right? So one of the things that happens is if your government regulation isn't quite on top of things, not that sophisticated, where we've got these leaders in the field.
Yeah.
And they can be leaders because their labor practices are, top of line. They can be leaders because of their education, leaders because of their innovation. They should be, rewarded, and we need to not let the people who aren't playing by the rules cheat and make money doing that. Right? There's a role for government, but it's to create these conditions. And the idea with the Green Party is we're kind of thinking of the economy as being a green economy, but we're embracing innovation, and as you say, you can do all.
So you don't hate manufacturing.
My brother runs a manufacturing plant.
Yeah, you'd have real family problems.
Yeah.
Building healthy communities is pillar number 3. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce and the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce in particular have really are starting to focus heavily on mental health. We're working on building a toolkit for small business owners where they can utilize the toolkit to identify employees that might be struggling with mental health issues, but more importantly, to give them the tools to be able to help their employee with it.
Thank you.
It's very, very, it's very important, and you can draw directly straight, dark, black line between productivity and mental health. And so if an employer wants his employees or her employees to be top of line, that's part of the equation as well. So we want to make sure that we can deal with that. The other thing is that whole opioid and homelessness issue and addiction issue is becoming clearly much more evident. But if we untangle all of that stuff, we can go right back to the root cause being mental health as well. When is the government going to stop putting Band-Aids on things and start dealing with the root cause?
Well, you know what? When we start electing more Greens.
Okay, tell me why.
My background, I spent 10 or 15 years middle management at a nonprofit organization working with family counseling and children's mental health. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Mental health is health. Very, very related.
Absolutely.
And so the Green Party is in favor of OHIP plus. That in fact OHIP covers mental health. Okay. So and in fact there's pilot projects right in Waterloo region. They've had family health teams that have had mental health practitioners attached. There's McMaster's got a program as well in Hamilton. There's all kinds of research that shows that you manage the mental health. A person with a heart attack, having had a heart attack and survived, is high risk for depression. Depression does not help their heart condition, right? So there's all kinds of research that, in fact, you're going to save money, right? If you're
it's preventative medicine.
It's
right?
preventative. So the Green Party is in favor of and it's interesting because originally when Medicare first began, and of course that's federal, one of the places it began was with respect to mental health.
Yeah.
But right now mental health has kind of been left behind because there's so many practitioners who it's not covered by.
You know why? So maybe it's been left behind. I had a meeting with a heart specialist one time, and he called me up. He says, "Greg, I got to give you this presentation." And I thought, okay. I thought it was a group of people. I go into this room, it's me all alone, and he's got a PowerPoint presentation he's going through, and I'm thinking yes, I'm a little bit overweight, but I don't have an obvious heart problem. Why is he doing this with me? Well, the crux of his message to me was, Greg, you need to help me get the message to government that they need to be funding preventative care.
Absolutely.
Because he said the problem is the only time I get paid right now is when I'm standing over top of you on a gurney with the paddles in my hand. And that's too late. So, because after that, it costs $5,000 to $7,000 a day to take care of you. So, we can do that, for far less than $7,000 by having a preventative program in place where heart specialists can be covered under that, or patients can be covered under that, and get that, when they've been identified as maybe a high-risk heart person, or a heart problem. So, is that what the Green Party is really talking about?
Yeah, the Green Party, I mean, it's, again, evidence-informed.
Yeah.
I mean, we call it a healthcare system. It's actually a health crisis management. Right? I mean, we wait until there's a crisis where there isn't a lot of and the reality is that it's like any other place. With mental health, many people are dealing with stress.
Yep.
Right? And stress can often lead to anxiety. Anxiety is related to depression. Depression that isn't resolved can cause other symptoms and lead to, and then, of course, you have people who may self-medicate, and
Yes.
then and you have all these, so the problems get more and more complex.
Right,
The
right.
longer we leave them, and the more difficult it is for people to navigate,
Yep.
the system and get support. So the Green Party, OHIP plus and moving all of healthcare, like mental health is health.
Yep.
We know now that it's all related.
Yeah, for sure.
Your mind is not separate from your body.
Yeah,
We are,
exactly.
we're all together, and integrating and putting more emphasis on the prevention to support people.
Excellent. Good information. Government accountability. Is the Auditor General right or the government right?
Well, I think the whole point of the Auditor General is to have that. It's not an opinion that we want to ignore, right?
Well,
There are-
wait a minute. For the last few years, the Auditor General has not been that kind to this government.
Well, there may be a good reason for that. The Green Party is in favor of actually measuring even more,
Yeah.
and measuring sooner. When you're talking about business, businesses don't go just with their income statements.
No, exactly.
they don't sell off assets.
Yeah.
In order to, once a business starts selling off parts of its assets in order to help the revenue stream for that
The
year,
owner's trying to retire.
Yeah, or there's a problem.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Right? So the Green Party is like true accounting. Let's look at the difference between selling off assets and also the triple bottom line of people, planet, profit. One of a huge potential source of revenue is Ontario is under pricing minerals, and like if you take the royalties, if you take gravel, gravel's in the ground, right? If you can't get the price you want, it stays in the ground. It's not going to move to Mexico. So lowest in Canada is Ontario at 1%. Saskatchewan is 10%. If we just went up to Saskatchewan's level of 10%, that would give us lots of revenue to, so it's not a choice of do we help people or do we have profit. We in fact, and that's social innovation. How can you do both? How can we look after people and ensure that we have a strong economy? And one of the things is let's value and keep track of our resources. Let's not give them away. And let's have fair pricing. So that's a huge source of basically we're giving away things, and any business who does that, they don't last very long.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. How do you feel about term limits? Do you think people have a difficult time at recognizing their own best before date?
Well, if they don't recognize a nuclear plant's best before date. I think that electoral reform is really, really important, and probably before I'd get to term limits, I would be looking at proportionate, representation.
That may solve that issue, right?
Right. And the reality is the proportionate representation, which you end up, it's better in terms of not as much regionalism, because it forces people to work together in a way that represents the population. And if you look at some of the countries in Europe who have proportional representation, the reason they take a little while to form government is they do some collaboration.
They're making deals.
And they're figuring out, they're strategizing, like they're doing a strategic plan. And it represents the people.
Yeah.
So if you think of creating conditions for the people and the businesses in Ontario to be prosperous and have good well-being, this kind of strategic thinking across party lines is so. I think the term limits, I don't feel as strongly about that.
Let's fix the electoral system first.
And also the civility at Queen's Park.
Yeah. Wow.
Because
I'd like to think that would change, but
well, it's a culture, And
For sure.
businesses now really, you know, the businesses that are ahead of the times, they look after their organizational culture.
Yeah.
We know that with a strong, supportive, collaborative organizational structure, you're less likely to have sexual harassment or bullying in your workplace. You can avoid all of those problems. But the other thing is you have this very professional, collegial atmosphere. You get things done.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And we, you know, a circus is very entertaining.
Yep.
But the government is too serious to let it be, you know, a circus. We need that. So on the electoral reform, I would probably, I mean, it's actually the easiest thing is moving towards the civility and the collaboration, because most people are more comfortable in that.
It's, you know what, the civility thing, you know, that's always really bugged me. You know, oftentimes I'll have flicked through and I come across CPAC and I'm watching Question Period. And oddly enough, I might be going into Toronto the next day to have a meeting with the very minister that's, you know, and they call it, one wise person said to me, Greg, don't expect to hear any answers at Question Period because it's called Question Period, not Question and Answer Period. So, but, you know, I think to myself, I'm going down to have a meeting with that individual tomorrow in Toronto, and I want to have a productive and sensible and adult meeting, and it doesn't look like they're the type of person I can do that with because of how they've acted in the House.
Yeah, I mean, there is a tradition with the committee work tend to be nonpartisan, and they tend to get a lot of things accomplished. But there's a movement away from the committee work.
Yeah.
I mean, the very having party whips and people voting because the head of the party tells them to do that. That also is, you know, it doesn't help. I mean, the Green Party, it's like, you vote for me, I will work to make change. It's not dependent on Green Party forming a majority. We're prepared to say we will make things happen. We will make change happen. Mike Schreiner, the leader of the Green Party, has initiated many changes. He doesn't have a seat yet.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well.
So the you know, the some of the dynamics is affected by this, you know, the partisan party politics, which really, it has its place, but the civility and the decorum and the collaboration has to prioritize.
We had Mike on our radio show that I do with my colleague in KW, you know, great, absolutely great guy, really very sincere man, and you know, I wish him all the best, and of course the party. I look at the party and you had 7% popular vote last time. Boy, it's kind of hard to sit back and say the Green Party shouldn't at least have one seat.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like pretty tough to do that. But anyway, Michelle, it's been great. I want to give you an opportunity to talk directly to the constituents of the Cambridge riding. So why don't you tell them right now why they should vote for the Green Party, and more importantly, vote for you?
Well, a vote for the Green Party is a vote for people, powered change, and change is what we need in politics. It's what Ontario needs. I'm very passionate about social justice issues, including people. I've been an entrepreneur. I still have a little business. Social innovation is one of my fields, and I think it's time to bring social innovation and powerful change to the Ontario legislature. And if you vote for me, I'll help make that happen.
Well, there you've heard it from Michele Braniff. We hope that these videos help you make an informed decision on June the 7th. We encourage you to reach out, talk to the candidates, ask the questions on the issues that affect you most. But please, on June the 7th, please vote.
Yes.
I'm Greg DeRocher for the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for watching. Michelle.
Thank you.